You're listening to the Power Agent Blogcast, empowering agents to elevate their business to the next level.
Challenges are just a guide, leading you, don't run and hide. You've got the heart, you've got the drive, feel it pound, you're alive. Power Agent.
Welcome back to the Power Agent Blogcast. We're going to be talking about self-management today, something that's so important for success in real estate. And here's a pretty crazy statistic to think about. Did you know 95% of what we think are time management problems are actually like attitude problems?
That's a powerful stat, and it really shows how much our mindset affects how effective we are. We can't actually control time, right? It's impossible. But what we can control is ourselves and what we do with the 24 hours we have.
So it's more about self-management than time management. What's the real difference there?
Okay, think about this. Have you ever gotten so caught up in something you enjoy that hours just disappear? When that happens, you're not really managing your time. You're just totally focused on your passion, on what you really want to do. It's like you and the task become one, you know? You just move toward your goal without even thinking about it. Like in real estate, it's less about doing the job and more about being a real estate professional.
It's about finding that perfect balance where your actions and your goals are the same. So work doesn't feel like a chore. It's more like, a natural part of who you are and what you love.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that, especially in real estate?
Well, that's where self-management strategies come in. First, we have to understand that we can't actually control time, but we can control what we do with it. And then we need to switch from being reactive to proactive. So instead of always putting out fires, we focus on achieving specific goals.
Yeah, I totally get that. When I actually take the time to set goals and make a plan, I feel so much more focused and productive. It's like having a map to guide me and keep me on track. But real estate can be so unpredictable. How are we supposed to stick to our goals when there are always unexpected problems?
Right, and that's where a third strategy comes in. Creating a system for organizing what we do. Think of it like a morning routine. If you create routines for important tasks, you build good habits that make you more efficient and in control, even when things are crazy.
I see. Routines bring structure and predictability, which are really important in a field as fast-paced as real estate. So what's the next step to becoming better at self-management?
Well, the next step is changing how we see time. Instead of thinking of it as something that's constantly running out, we need to think of it as something we can invest in. Just like you'd be careful about where you invest your money to get the best return, you can be strategic about how you invest your time.
I like that. That's a really interesting way to look at it. It makes us think about time as something we have control over, not something that's controlling us. We can make choices about where we put our energy instead of feeling overwhelmed by all the things we have to do.
Exactly. And this leads us to a really important point, especially in real estate, where there's always something demanding our attention, accepting that we can't do it all.
That's a hard one to accept, especially for people like us who are always pushing ourselves to achieve more and more. But seriously, how can we possibly manage all the client demands, the market ups and downs, the paperwork, and still have a life outside work? It just seems impossible.
It definitely can feel that way, and that's exactly why accepting this is so freeing. If we try to do everything for everyone all at once, we're just going to burn out. We need to recognize our limits. That way, we can focus on doing a few things really well instead of trying to do everything.
So it's about being careful with our time and energy and making sure that what we are doing is helping us reach our goals. So what do we do once we've accepted that we can't do it all?
That brings us to our next strategy, which is all about tackling procrastination. It's pretty simple, but it makes a huge difference. Just do something, anything, instead of getting stuck doing nothing.
I think we've all been there, especially when we have these big, scary tasks staring us in the face. It's like our brains just want to avoid them at all costs. So how do we actually break out of that cycle?
Sometimes the hardest thing is just getting started. Once you take that first step, even if it's small, it kind of breaks you out of that frozen state and gets you moving. The key is to just start doing something instead of trying to make everything perfect from the beginning.
So even doing a small task can create this domino effect, pushing us forward and breaking through that initial resistance. It's about gaining momentum, one step at a time. But how do we make sure that work doesn't take over our whole lives?
That's where the idea of balance comes in, which is super important. It's easy to get so focused on work, especially in real estate, that we forget about taking care of ourselves and our relationships. One way to think about it is to divide your time into three main areas: work, personal time, including sleep, and family. A good guideline is to spend about 55 hours on work, 73 hours on personal stuff, and 40 hours on family.
Those are good general guidelines, and they really highlight how important it is to make time for each of those areas. But in real estate, there's this pressure to be available all the time. So how can we actually create that kind of structure?
You don't have to stick to those exact numbers, but it's more about being intentional with how you spend your time. Take a look at how you're spending your time right now. Are you always sacrificing personal time for work? Are you neglecting your family? Once you see where things are out of balance, you can start to fix them.
It's a good reminder that if we ignore any one of those areas for too long, it can really hurt our well-being and even make us less effective at work. So how do we turn this idea into something we can actually do?
That's where our last strategy comes in, creating a work schedule and actually sticking to it. It might seem basic, but it can really change how you work. When you have specific hours set aside for work, you're forced to be more efficient during those times.
So a set schedule not only makes us more productive, but also sets clear expectations for our clients, colleagues, and families, right? It creates boundaries that reduce distractions and help us focus on work. So what are some good ways to make a schedule that really works for real estate?
Start by figuring out when you're most productive. Are you a morning person who gets the most done early in the day? Or do you work better in the afternoon? Then schedule your most important tasks for those times. Also, think about how your real estate business usually flows. Are there certain days or times when you tend to have more client interactions or paperwork? Include those patterns in your schedule.
It seems like it's all about matching your schedule to your personal rhythms and the natural flow of your business. But what about all the unexpected things that pop up in real estate? Like those sudden phone calls or urgent client requests.
Flexibility is definitely important. You don't want your schedule to be so rigid that you can't handle the unexpected. Make sure to build in some buffer time for those last-minute things that come up. And don't forget to communicate. If something happens and you need to change your schedule, let your clients and colleagues know so everyone's on the same page.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between having a plan and being able to adapt. Your schedule should be a tool to help you be more productive, not something that keeps you from responding to the ever-changing world of real estate. So as we start wrapping up our discussion on these self-management strategies, what are the most important things our listeners should keep in mind as they start to implement them?
The most important thing is to remember that you can't control time itself, but you can control how you work within those 24 hours. Focus on managing yourself instead of getting caught up in trying to manage time. Shift from simply reacting to things to being proactive. That means setting clear goals and making a plan to reach them.
I agree. Creating regular routines can help us feel more in control, even when things are unpredictable, which is definitely true for real estate. We should see time as a valuable resource that we need to invest wisely. Choose tasks that will help you reach your goals and give you the biggest payoff. And remember, accepting that you can't do everything isn't a sign of weakness. It just means you're being realistic and focusing on quality over quantity.
Right, and finding a good balance between work and life is crucial if you want to be successful and happy in the long run. Make sure to set aside time for work, personal things, and family, and don't let any of those areas get neglected. And finally, having a work schedule that you actually stick to can really boost your productivity and help everyone involved know what to expect.
These are all really great points, and I think that even trying out a few of these strategies can make a huge difference in a real estate agent's career. And it's not just about, selling more houses or making more money. It's about building a career that you actually enjoy and that feels meaningful. As we finish up, what's one last thing you'd want our listeners to think about as they work on their self-management skills?
Well, here's something to consider. How can you use these strategies not just to be more successful in your career, but to also feel more fulfilled in every part of your life?
Wow, that's a really thought-provoking question. It reminds us that self-management isn't just about getting things done. It's about living a more intentional and meaningful life.
Yeah, exactly. When you apply these principles, you can actually free up more time and energy for the things that bring you joy and make your life richer.
That's so true. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Power Agent Blogcast. We hope you've learned some valuable things about self-management and how it can really transform not only your real estate business, but your entire life.
Remember, even small changes, when you do them consistently, can lead to big, positive results. See you next time.